It's April 2025 and I'm coming to the end of my journey to Japan, but not before I explore some of the quieter corners of the world's most populated city. I'm less than a mile from Shinjuku Station, but that's around 3.6 million passengers a day, but you wouldn't know it wandering through this peaceful rhododendron garden. Tokyo, a city of 14 million, a metro area of 41 million, the most populated city on the planet, yet even here it's possible to escape the crowds and find peace and tranquility in the heart of a city. And I've started, perhaps not on the best foot, by heading to the Imperial Palace, because what says quiet, tranquil location, not visited by tourists, than the palace of the last remaining emperor on the planet. Although in this case the distance between the tourists and the royal household is significantly bigger in Tokyo, with the numbers crowding around Buckingham Palace, the Amalienborg or Palacio Real. In fact, as a tourist, you can get significantly closer to the President of the US and the White House from Lafayette Square than you'll ever will to the Emperor of Japan in the Imperial Palace. So if it's not the Imperial Palace people are visiting, what is it? Well, it's the Imperial Palace East Gardens, the site of the original Edo castle, home to the shoguns who ruled the country from Tokyo, then Edo, when the capital and emperor were still 400 kilometres away in Kyoto. The site was first developed by warrior Edo Shigesugu around the end of the 12th century, though the castle wouldn't be built on the site until 1457. After passing through various hands, the castle ended up in the hands of the Tokugawa clan and therefore became their base of power when the Tokugawa shogunate took control of the country. Originally, parts of the site were underwater as the sea reached this far up into the city, but large-scale engineering works changed the landscape for the construction of the castle. Various works took place over nearly 2 centuries before the final completion of the site in 1636. By the time the works were complete, the castle had 38 gates, the ramparts were almost 20 metres high and the outer walls were 12 metres high, with concentric rings of moats adding to the fortifications of the site. At strategic points along the walls there were keeps and defensive towers, of which the Fujimi Yagura, or Fuji Tower, which on a clear day was reported to have been able to see as far as the mountain, is one of the last surviving examples. After the end of the shogunate in 1867, the inhabitants of the castle were forced to vacate the premises, with the castle compound first renamed to Tokyo Castle in 1868, and then the Imperial Castle the following year. A fire ripped through the old Edo castle on the night of May 5, 1873, and all that survived was the stone base of the keep. Advantage was taken of this to build a new imperial palace in a slightly different location and to remove all the remaining Tokugawa-era buildings, creating the large park space that is the Hama-rikyu today. You can climb up to the top of the stone base of the keep, taking in views over the park. Apart from the base, the Hama-rikyu is not much more today than a wide open space dotted with large trees, but the remainder of the garden site is much more interesting to explore. In 1959, following the destruction of the Imperial Palace during the air raids of World War II, a report was submitted to the Prime Minister of Japan outlining plans for reconstruction of a new Imperial Palace and complex in the western area of the palace grounds, and the development of the eastern side of the grounds into gardens to be opened to the public. Work on the gardens started in 1961 and took 7 years to complete, with the East Gardens opening to the public on October 1, 1968. Along with the Hama-rikyu, the gardens include the Ninna-rikyu and the Sana-rikyu, or outer areas of the grounds, originally separated by ramparts, walls and gates. Immediately behind the now empty base of the keep is one of the 3 gates that allow public access to the park, the Kita Hanabashi Gate, which provides an excellent view of the engineering works that went into building the site, from the wide moat and tall, thick defensive walls. Further examples of the layers of defences are on show as you descend down from the Honmaru to the Ninamaru and through the sight of other gates and inner moats before you reach the third of the three gates you can enter through, the Hirakara-mon Gate. Back into the Ninamaru, which shows just how fortified the upper Honmaru is from the rest of the complex, from the high rampart walls on top of which the original Edo castle was built. Down here is the Ninamaru Grove, the castle gardens, which in mid-April were a sea of pink and reds from the heavily tamed rhododendron bushes. As well as the last few trees in full blossom bloom. And just beyond the grove is the Ninamaru Garden, set around the Ninamaru Pond, with bridges and pathways allowing you to explore the space. But it wasn't just the castle gardens that were opened up in the 1960s. Prior to that, in 1949, the large plaza in front of the main entrance to the Imperial Palace was also opened up to the public. During the Edo period, this area was called the Nishimonaru Shita and was the home to the mansions of the feudal lords connected to the shoguns, as well as horse riding grounds and stables. The plaza is centred around a large lawn and bordered by the moats of the inner palace and behind it the outer moats. Across the site, black pine trees dot the grass. Considering how densely packed the city is, this is a rare large space of open land, way away from the skyscrapers and to some extent the traffic of Tokyo. Another place where you can escape the traffic is in the Hama-rikyu Gardens. Located at the mouth of the Sumida River, the Hama-rikyu Gardens is a 250,000 square metre landscape gardens that opened to the public in April 1946 on the site of a former villa belonging to the Tokugawa shoguns. Around the same time that the Tokugawa family were taking control of Japan and Edo Castle, the lands to the east and south of the castle were still mostly marshes and swamps, with a sea of reeds being the main thing visible from the castle. To build the major city that the shoguns wanted, there would need to be land reclamation, and slowly over the following years higher ground was excavated and resulting soil was used to fill in the reed beds and swamps. In 1654, the younger brother of the then shogun received permission from his sibling to reclaim land from the bay to build a villa and garden. The property was eventually inherited by his son, who would go on to become the shogun himself, at which point the villa became a secondary residence of the shogun, in particular as a retreat where he could indulge in falconry. The villa itself was destroyed by fire in 1724 and was never rebuilt, but the gardens were retained, even serving as a palatial paddock for an elephant that the shogun received as a gift from Vietnam in 1729. Towards the end of the shogunate period, the site was turned over to the navy as a training ground, and in 1867 a Western-style stone building was erected in the gardens as a place for foreign diplomats to stay when they were visiting Edo. After the restoration of the emperor, the site was proclaimed as the Hama Palace, or Hama-rikyu. Though the name may have changed, the function remained the same, with the building used as a state guest house. Visitors included the former US President Ulysses S. Grant, who was on a world tour and stayed for a month, and Crown Prince Frederick Wilhelm of Germany, who would later go on to become Frederick III, and at 99 days between accession and death, the shortest serving German emperor. The state guest house was demolished in 1889 and the gardens were largely destroyed by the firestorms that followed the 1923 earthquake and were damaged again by fire following the Tokyo air raid of 1945. But compared to the rest of a totally destroyed city, was still an oasis of green and became a popular destination for the war-scarred residents of the city. The restoration of the park became part of an unemployment relief programme delivered by the Allied powers. The main feature of the gardens is the tidal pond. Seawater is drawn into the pond directly from the Sumida River and Tokyo Bay, with sluice gates being opened and closed based on the tides and water levels to ensure a gentle ebb and flow of the tides. Because it's connected directly to the bay, the tidal pond is home to mullet, sago, goby and eels that swim in from the bay. Crabs and barnacles can be seen on the rocks and stones in the pond as well. In the centre of the pond is the small island of Nakajima, which is linked to the shore by the Otsutai-bashi Bridge. On the centre of Nakajima Island is the Nakajima no Ochaya, a traditional tea house which was restored in 1983, at the same time as the bridge, and is open for the public to enjoy matcha tea and sugar cake. On the northern side of the tide pond are 3 further restored tea houses which have been placed here to show examples of different style tea houses from around the region. In several locations around the garden, artificial hills have been created that you can climb up to take in the views over the gardens and the estuary of the Sumida River that laps around the fortified base of the gardens. But perhaps the biggest surprise for relative peace and tranquility in the city is located just a mile from the busiest railway station on the planet, in the Meiji Jingu Shrine Complex. The complex is located in the forest area next to the tracks leading into Shinjuku Station, which in 2023-24 received just over 1.1 billion visitors, of which 929 million were commuters, equating to about 3.6 million every day. To put that in context, Gare du Nord in Paris, Europe's busiest station, gets less than a quarter of that annual number, and London Liverpool Street less than a tenth. New York Penn struggles to get over the 100 million mark. The Meiji Shrine is dedicated to the deified spirits of Emperor Meiji and his wife, Empress Shogun. Emperor Meiji was the emperor under whom the nation left the feudal Shogun era and entered into the modern age, moving from a society at risk of Western domination to an imperial powerhouse that controlled large parts of East Asia. Following the emperor's death in 1912, the Japanese parliament passed a resolution to commemorate his role in the restoration of the emperor. An iris garden in an area of the east of central Tokyo, where the emperor and empress had been known to visit, was chosen as the location to build a shrine. Construction work began in 1915 with the building of a shrine turned into a national project mobilising youth groups and other civic associations from across the country who contributed labour and funding. The shrine was formally dedicated on the 3rd of November 1920, with work completed on the structure in 1921 and the grounds finished by 1926. The original buildings were destroyed during the Tokyo air raids, but were rebuilt with a new shrine completed in 1958. The shrine is located in a 70-acre forest that today is covered by around 120,000 evergreen trees from 365 different species. There are 2 areas to the shrine itself. The Gyoen is the outer precinct, which includes the Meiji Memorial Picture Gallery that houses a collection of 80 large murals illustrating events in the lives of the emperor. The Nien is the inner precinct, which is centred on the shrine buildings and includes a treasure museum that houses articles that belonged to the emperor and empress. Next to the shrine is the Meiji Jingu Gyoen, or the Meiji Shrine in a garden. This 83,000 square metre garden is home to that iris garden that the imperial family liked to visit, and today includes century-old trees, a tranquil pond and paths to follow around the different areas. The garden was first laid out around 400 years ago, but Emperor Meiji commissioned several additions to the garden, including the Kakuntai tea house, specially built as a place to sit and rest for the Empress. In the days of the Emperor Meiji, this was part of the Imperial Palace estate and was off limits to most people. But today, after you've paid the small entry fee, you're free to wander around the gardens and take in the views. You may even get to see some of the local wildlife. The Nanshi Pond covers around 8,300 square metres and is fed by pure spring water. The carp living in the pond today are said to be direct descendants of those released by the Emperor himself more than a century ago. Kiyomasa's well is named after the military commander who dug it around 400 years ago and is the source for water that feeds both the Nanshi ponds and irrigates the iris beds. Its water maintains a constant temperature of 15 Celsius or 59 Fahrenheit all year round. The best time to visit the gardens is in June, when the irises that the imperial family loves so much are in bloom. The display includes 1,500 iris plants from 150 different species. But if, like me, you're here in April, then you'll just have to make do with a display of the azaleas and rhododendrons in the azalea garden, featuring trees that include examples that are over 100 years old, that combine to create a tunnel of flowers and blossoms that no video camera can ever do justice to for the vibrance or the fragrance. Leaving the shrine complex, you pass by a display of beautifully painted sake barrels. The full barrels are typically donated to the shrine by sake brewers from all over Japan for consumption on special occasions. The barrels on display are, naturally, the empties. Tokyo's Haneda and Narita airports combined are the third busiest airport system in the world after London and New York, and between them have links across the planet to airports on every continent. Haneda is significantly closer to the centre of Tokyo, being just 30 minutes by rail and monorail, or 45 minutes by metro. Narita is much further out from the city centre, taking between an hour and 2 hours, with prices for express and local trains matching the speed. Kansai International Airport serves Kyoto as well as Osaka and Kobe. Located on an artificial island in the middle of Osaka Bay, it was designed with rail links in mind, with the Haruka Limited Express connecting the airport to Osaka in 45 minutes and Kyoto in just under 90 minutes. Japan's internationally renowned Shinkansen run a very high-frequency service between the two cities, with the fastest Tokaido Shinkansen, the Nozomi, making the journey at least 4 times an hour in 2 hours 15 minutes. Slower versions, making more stops, can take around 3 hours, but cost less. Sit on the right-hand side from Tokyo to Kyoto, or the left-hand side on the return, to catch the 4-minute view of Mount Fuji as you speed past. Once in a lifetime will never be enough to do justice to this amazing country. Sayonara, Nihon.